Hello, everyone. This week we're going to talk about theater of terror and cosmic war. Religious terrorism events are deliberately intense and at times, very savage. They're purposely designed that way in order to elicit anger from not only those targeted but other people as well. If you look at the examples provided by Juergensmeyer, you can see that the attacks are meant to be very vivid and horrifying. So there's two main ways to view terrorist events. One way to view these events is as part of a strategic plan using covert violence to achieve political ends. While some religious terrorist events may be carried out in this manner, many are not. When you look at some of the religious terrorist events, it can be difficult to find the strategic benefits to the attacks. The other way to view them is not from a strategic value standpoint, because religious attacks oftentimes do not have much strategic value, but from a more symbolic standpoint. If you view them from a symbolic standpoint, you can see that they're meant to illustrate something beyond whatever the actual target is or was. They're more appropriately viewed as performance violence, where the characteristics of the event are more important than whatever strategic value the target possessed. So if we look at these events as performance violence, an important aspect is the location where they occur, also known as setting the stage, right? So instead of determining what the strategic value of the location was, what was the symbolic value of it. Oftentimes these locations are particular buildings, transportation hubs or airports. By attacking symbols of power, that allows the terrorists to claim these locations symbolically. Okay, so the next part of symbolic violence then is the timing of the attack. What is the symbolism for the date and time? Ramadan is a common time for attacks. Others may use anniversary dates, particular times for attacks, or dates such as Hitler's birthday or Independence Day. So then finally, it's important with symbolic attacks to reach the target audience. Because if the attack doesn't result in horrified people, then where's the symbolic value? Well, there really is none, right? If you don't have any horrified people, then there's really no symbolic value to the attack. So let's look at the Murrah Federal Building bombing by Timothy McVeigh kind of within this context. Why did he choose the Murrah Federal Building? First, it's located in the heartland of America. But others have attacked, on the coast, but by attacking a target inside the United States, where the public generally feels very low fear of a terrorist attack, it's sending a message, really that no one is safe. Secondly, the Murrah Building housed the ATF, which McVeigh blamed for the assault on the Branch Davidian compound in Waco. Timing? It was the anniversary of the attack on the Branch Davidians. It was also Patriots' Day, which marked the beginning of the Revolutionary War, and also the same day that earlier Richard Snell, a Christian identity follower, was scheduled to be executed. So there were several reasons why he picked that particular day. So who's the audience? When McVeigh was interviewed, he stated that he chose to bomb the building during normal business hours and didn't care that there was a daycare in the building because without a body count, no one pays attention. Further impacting the value of these types of targets is the exposure terrorists get from the media. Especially now with the internet and a 24-hour news cycle, now they can horrify people across the globe rather than only people that are more local to the attack. For example, with the Murrah Federal Building bombing, that happened in the 90s. There was no 24-hour news cycle then. The internet really wasn't a thing yet. So I read about it in a newspaper. I was in college at the time, and I remember seeing it on the front page of the paper, and the pictures were horrific. But it's so very different than seeing, graphic video, right, or 24 hours a day being bombarded with stories about, this particular type of event. So exposure from the media, especially now, really can ramp up how much people are horrified by what has happened. So in this discussion now leads us into the next part, which is a discussion of religious terrorism as cosmic war. Quite a few religious terrorists have made statements relative to their attacks about the world being at war. Osama bin Laden said that after the 9/11 attacks. The far right uses the acronym RAHOA, which means racial holy war. So why do they frame their acts as acts of war? First, they really don't frame it as an actual war, as in between two competing armies. And they frame it as divine war or some type of otherworldly war or a cosmic war. It's a battle of good versus evil. Not a disagreement that can be negotiated. But rather some kind of divine struggle where there is no negotiation. Right? You can't negotiate good versus evil. Okay. So oftentimes these struggles are defined as also existing since the dawn of time, or the continuation of the divine struggle of good versus evil that has always existed. So by defining it as war, they remove compromise or negotiation as a possible outcome, so that only two outcomes then exist. Okay, winning and losing. The enemy must be destroyed. If the opponent continues to exist, they are a threat and must be dealt with. But further, if someone proposes some type of negotiated settlement, then they also become the enemy and must be destroyed. So by calling it a divine war, they now have moral justification to complete acts of violence. This violence gives them the illusion of power, which is something that terrorists crave. So these views on warfare, as a continuation of the battle between good and evil, help these extremists to make sense of what's happening in the world around them. Not only does it allow them a way to make sense of the world, but it allows them a way to actively participate in fighting the forces of evil, that they see all around them. History is full of religiously motivated warfare, and these terrorists draw from these histories to help define and justify their cosmic war. Further, many religions have warfare type terminology commonly used in sermons and hymn. How these references to violence are viewed by these particular adherents, that religion really influences how they act out these images of warfare. For example, if someone is told to be a soldier for Christ, followers may interpret that differently and act on it differently. Okay, so when do these symbols become deadly? Oftentimes the line between symbolic and actual is very, very thin, right? It often occurs, when the religious symbolism of struggle or war is attached to real events that are occurring in the world, where the struggle becomes very real rather than just occurring in symbol only. If you're talking about, this battle between good and evil, but then if you can say, look, this particular thing is happening, and that shows, right, that this is actually going on right now. So it's no longer just symbolic, something you talk about. It's a very real thing that people can look at and see, oh my gosh, this really is, what's happening right now. So when this happens, it becomes very real, and then people believe that individual activism can make the difference in a battle being won or lost. So there's 3 times when confrontations are likely to become cosmic war. The struggle is perceived as a defense of basic identity and dignity. Losing the struggle would be unthinkable, and the struggle is blocked and cannot be won in real time or in real terms. Okay? So the appearance of any of these 3 may mean that the struggle may be characterized as cosmic war. But the more of them that are present, the higher the likelihood that it will become a cosmic war. Okay, so if you only have one of those, maybe it's a cosmic war, maybe it's not. But as you get into 2 and 3 of those, it's much more likely that someone is going to characterize that as a cosmic war. All right, so I'm going to quit with that for this week for Theater of Terror and Cosmic War. Make sure you complete all your assignments in Blackboard. And as always, if you have questions, please do not hesitate to get in touch with me. I'll see you next week.